Thank you.
Senator from
This
South Carolina.
email, to remind the body of what we're talking about, this email was released as a result of a lawsuit, not voluntarily by the White House. In August of last year, the House of Representatives, the committees of jurisdiction, subpoenaed all documents related to Benghazi and basically were stiff-armed. Senator McCain, Ayotte, and myself have written enough letters to destroy a small forest of the White House with nothing to show for it, virtually. There was a private organization called Judicial Watch who sued under the Freedom of Information Act, and an independent judiciary, thank God for that, ordered this White House to disclose this email just days ago. Knowing that the email was going to come out, the White House provided it to the Congress a few days ago. What does that tell us? That tells us that they did not want you to know about this email. And they talk about 25,000 documents they've provided. It doesn't matter the number of documents you provided to the Congress. You could have provided us the Benghazi phone book. It's the relevance of the documents and the significance of the documents. And the reason they did not want you, me, and anyone else to know about this email, because it's the smoking gun that shows that people at the White House level, now these are people that work for the White House, for the administration, were very intent on shaping the story about Benghazi away from what they knew to be the truth. And here's the problem for the White House. This was 7 weeks before an election. President Obama had said repeatedly, bin Laden's dead, al-Qaeda's on the run, the war is receding, my foreign policy is working. Many of us were critical of President Obama's foreign policy, particularly in Libya, because after Gaddafi fell, we really did nothing to secure the country. Senator McCain, myself, and a couple of other senators, Rubio, went in 2011 to Libya, and we said in an op-ed piece, if we don't get rid of these militias, Libya is going to become a safe haven for terrorists. And you got to understand this about the Benghazi consulate. It had been previously attacked in April of 2012. The British ambassador had been attacked in June of 2012. The British closed their consulate. The Red Cross closed their office because they had been attacked. And we've got email traffic coming from Libya to Washington at the State Department level saying in August 16th, we cannot secure the Benghazi consulate from a coordinated terrorist attack, and al-Qaeda flags are flying all over Benghazi. What they did not want you to know is that the consulate in Benghazi was very unsecured. Everyone else had left the town, and that the numerous requests for security enhancements going back for months had been denied. They didn't want you to know that because it would make the American people mad that the facility was so unsecured in such a dangerous area and people in Washington constantly ignored requests for additional security. Here's what they wanted you to know: to convey that the United States is doing everything we can to protect our people and facilities abroad. That, to me, is the worst of the whole email, because they're trying to convey to the American people, the families of the fallen, that these things happened, but we did all we could to protect your family and those who serve this nation. Nothing could be more untruthful about Benghazi than this statement that they did everything they could to secure the facility. And the question as to whether or not this email relates to Benghazi was the most offensive thing coming out of the White House in quite a while. No one else died. There was an attack on our embassy in Cairo with property damage. What do you think Susan Rice was going to be asked about on Sunday, 16 September? Everybody in the nation wanted to know how our ambassador and 3 other brave Americans died. To suggest they weren't trying to prepare her to talk about the deaths of an American, 4 Americans, is just insulting to our intelligence. But the document itself tells you it was directed toward explaining Benghazi. To show that we will be resolute in bringing people who harm Americans to justice, That was part of what they wanted her to convey. No one else was hurt other than Benghazi. So within the document itself, they're talking about reinforcing the view that we will go after those who harmed Americans. The only people who were harmed, the 4 people killed, were in Benghazi. So that's just a bald-faced lie. That's insulting our intelligence, and it really is disrespectful to those who died in the line of duty to suggest this email they would not give us without a court order had nothing to do with the death of 4 Americans. It had everything to do.
I might add that all of the emails were supposed to be given to the Congress as in return for the confirmation of Mr. Brennan as head of the CIA. Yes. They didn't do that.
No. The bottom line here is the goals set out in this email are to try to convince the American people 7 weeks before an election we had done everything possible to protect our people and facilities, to underscore that the protests were rooted in an internet video and not a broader failure of policy. I'm here to tell you, and I dare anybody to show where I'm wrong, there's no evidence of a protest outside the compound that led to an eventual attack. I've talked to the man in charge of security at Benghazi, the only survivor I've been able to talk to. He told me that when the ambassador went to bed shortly after 9 o'clock, there was nobody outside the compound. They would not have let him go to bed if there had been protesters, and they would have reported up to the chain of command a protest.
And the next day, the station chief sent a message. There was not a spontaneous demonstration.
That was the 15th. So I'll get to that in a second. So this is in real time. People are reporting a coordinated terrorist attack. There was no protest. The video had nothing to do with this because there was no protest. And why would they suggest that? They're far less culpable in the eyes of the American people and myself if in fact this was caused by a video we had nothing to do with, a protest that you could not see coming. The truth of the matter is this was a coordinated terrorist attack that you could see coming for months, and it was a result of a broader failure of policy. Why did they not want to admit that? They're 7 weeks out. It undercuts everything they were trying to tell the American people about their foreign policy. This is the smoking gun that shows they were consciously trying to manipulate the evidence to steer the story away from a coordinated terrorist attack of an unsecured facility into the land of an internet video causing a protest. That, to me, is unacceptable and is clear as the sun rises in the east for those who care. Now, I will end with this and turn it back over to Senator McCain. President Obama, after this attack, said the following: but every piece of information we get, as we got it, we laid out for the American people. I am here to tell you that that statement has not borne scrutiny, that this administration did not live up to this statement. Here's another statement. From Jay Carney. I can tell you that the President believes that Ambassador Rice has done an excellent job as the United States Ambassador to the United Nations, and I believe that, and I know that he believes that everyone here working for him has been transparent in the way that we've tried to answer questions about what happened in Benghazi. If you were trying to be transparent about what was happening in Benghazi, why would you fail to provide the relevant information? The information that we provided was based on the available assessment at the time. I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, they have not provided the relevant information. Why? Because the relevant information crumbles the story Susan Rice told on 16 September, crumbles the story of the President himself when weeks later he talked about a protest caused by a video that never happened. The reason they haven't shared this with us is because it exposes the lie of Benghazi. And I will end with this thought. You would not know today about an email on 14 September setting goals for Susan Rice to meet on 16 September to change the whole narrative if it were not for an independent judiciary and a private organization. This White House has stiffed the Congress. Mostly the media has been AWOL. But the reason we haven't stopped is because we've met the families. To any member of the Congress who thinks Benghazi is a Republican conspiracy designed to help Lindsey Graham or anyone else get elected, why don't you go to the family members and explain to them what happened? Why don't you tell the family members that your government, the government, was up front and honest, and see if they will believe you? This email that came from a court requiring the White House to disclose it is devastating. It's devastating because it shows that 3 days after the attack, their goal was not to inform the American people of what happened, but to shape the story to help the president get reelected. And I hope and pray that matters to the American people, and I believe it does. And I hope and pray that our friends on the Democratic side will start taking a little bit of interest, because I can tell you this about Senator McCain and myself. When President Bush's policies in Iraq were crumbling, we did not have enough troops, and John McCain, to his credit, said that publicly and asked for the resignation of President Bush's Secretary of Defense because of failed policy. When we discovered the abuses at Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib when it came to Taney policy, both of us stood up and said the system failed. Don't believe it when they tell you this was a few bad apples. Why did we do that? I've been a military lawyer for 31 years. It means a lot to me to adhere to the conventions we've signed up to. Senator McCain, if there's ever an American hero in the Senate, it's him, who's lived through a country that practices torture, and he did not want us to go down that road. When we did those things, we were great Americans, holding the system accountable and doing the country a service. Now, all of a sudden, we're just party hacks. I'm here to tell you what drove us then drives us now. When you ask people to serve in faraway places with strange-sounding names and to go out on the tip of the spear, you owe it to help them if you can, give them the best ability to survive, and if something bad happens, you owe their families the truth. Just as in Iraq, they tried to shape the story in a fashion that did not bear scrutiny. It wasn't a few dead enders. It was system failure that led to the collapse of Iraq, and thank God we changed tactics and we overcome our problems. This Benghazi story is about a foreign policy choice called the light footprint that caught up with this administration. It is about an administration that said no to additional security requests because they didn't want to be like Bush. It was a story about an administration too stubborn to react to facts on the ground, that kept a consulate open when everybody else closed theirs, unsecured, believing that ignoring the problem would solve the problem. We have now found evidence of their willingness, desire to change the narrative from a coordinated terrorist attack of an unsecured facility to something they really couldn't control, and they did the best they could 7 weeks before an election. And all I can say, if the shoe were on the other foot, and this had been the Bush administration, it'd be front page news everywhere. And our colleagues on the other side will be up screaming. And it is sad to me that it hasn't been news everywhere. And it's sad to me that my Democratic colleagues in the House in particular have disdain for trying to find out what happened in Benghazi.